the concerns for a BCP-DR plan? Now, the evacuation plan should be very clearly spelled out. People's life always take the first priority. Even when we say people process technology, we mention people first, not technology process people or process people technology. So people's life is of most important value to any organization or not. Disaster declaration. Who will declare a disaster? How it will be declared? And for what purpose it will be declared? Meaning there should be a definition or certain criteria under which a disaster can be declared. Then the responsibility. Who covers the necessary disaster recovery functions? Who has a responsibility to do what? For example, who will contact law enforcement? Who will contact media? Who will declare a disaster? What is the role of the IT during a disaster? Who takes care of evacuating people or ensuring that people are safe? Then, what are the procedures for disaster recovery once it is declared? How do you bring back or how do you resume normalcy of operations? How an alternate mode operation will be there? So, it has to be clearly laid down in terms of resource allocation. So, in the recovery side, how many staff do you need? What are the systems that are required? How long will you continue? So that needs to be clearly spelled out. And the copy of the BCP-DR should be available off-site also. In the event that you are not able to access your main site, and or if, for example, a fire occurs, everything is lost, then what do you do with the BCP-DR which is good? So you need to have a copy of that on the off-site also. We spoke about responsibilities, disaster recovery responsibilities. Just take a look at this. General business. So when you take the business in general, then the first responder is responsible for what? Evacuation, fire, health of employees. Then there is a damage assessment team. Now these need not be different people. It could be responsibilities allocated to different people doing different functions. Then there is emergency management, legal affairs, usually people involved with the law, or if there is a legal department within the organization, they will do that. Then transportation and relocation, coordination. So this is transportation of people, transportation of equipment, all those things happen. Then supplies, emergency supplies, not only organization supplies, even food may be a factor here. Then how do you salvage whatever is lost? Training. Who will train employees to act when a disaster occurs? So mock DR test should be done. Who is in charge of the training? Who assesses the effectiveness of the training? What frequency is the training conducted? So all this is very important. Then in IT specific functions you have software. What softwares are required, what version, what build, how many patches have been put, the application, what applications are required. Then in emergency operations, what actually you will provide as a service. Then the recovery of the network itself, the hardware, the database or entries, then the information security. Now, in all this, the contact information is very important. So, people should know whom to contact, when and how in the event of some incident occurring. What are the documents for BCP? Now, if you look at the table, it has three columns. One is the focus. Focus is on IT and business. Let's take an example of event recovery. So, under IT, there is a disaster recovery plan. What it specifies? Procedures to recover at an alternate site. Under business, you have a business recovery plan or a business resumption plan. That is how to recover a business after a disaster. These are spelled out. Then there is IT contingency plan. It recovers major applications or systems. So contingency plan is a very important aspect under your business continuity plan. Then when it comes under the head of business, it is occupant emergency plan. That is protection of life and assets during a physical threat. Then cyber incident response plan. If there is a malicious cyber attack or incident, what has to be done? Under business, it is crisis communication plan. That is to provide a status report to the public and the insiders or personnel. Business continuity, you will have a business continuity plan, which will specify continuity of operation plan and what happens during longer duration outages. All this have to be mandatorily kept by an organization. Looking back at the same example of a university, we can classify, so let's say the criticality class, critical or vital. What are the business process affected? What is an incident or problematic event? And what is the procedure for handling? If the criticality is vital, the business process is registration. A computer failure can be classified as an incident or a problematic event. The procedure for handling these things are database backup procedures, so proper database backup should be taken. Database recovery procedure should be there for registration. There could also be a mobile site plan. If it is critical in nature, it affects the teaching faculty. The incident or problematic event could be a computer failure. Again, the procedure for handling here is the database backup procedure, database recovery procedure for the teaching aspect, then the mobile site plan. So this is just an overview or an example of how the BCP overview looks like. Then you have something called MTBF, which is mean time between failure, and MTTR is mean time to repair. So basically, it is a measure of availability. Now, 5 nines, 99.999% of uptime is 5.5 hours of downtime minutes per year. So, if you say that you are going to provide an uptime of 99.999 or 5 nines, that means you can afford only 5.5 minutes of failure per year. So, that is a very high objective to attain. MTTF is mean time to failure. Now, a disaster recovery text execution is always tested in the order what is given in the slide. It's a desk-based evaluation or a paper test. A group steps through the paper procedure and mentally performs each step. Then the second one is the preparedness test. Now, it's a part of the full test which is performed, and different parts are tested regularly. And a full operational test, which is simulation of a full disaster. So mock tests are conducted. In a lot of your IT parks, this mock disaster recovery is conducted on a half-yearly basis by the people who manage the facilities, just to ensure preparedness of the different organizations who work out of that building, and to ensure that people are aware what to do when a disaster occurs. What are the types of business continuity tests? One is a checklist review. It reviews the coverage of the plan. Are all important concerns covered? That's what basically the checklist will cover. A structured walkthrough. Review all aspects of the plan. Often walking through different scenarios. So, if a plan is made, what happens if X incident happens? What happens if Y happens? So, a structured walkthrough is conducted. The third is a simulation test. That is, execute plan based on specific scenario without the alternate side. So, you actually simulate the test and execute or invoke the plan and see what the results are. Parallel test. Bring up alternate offsite facility without bringing down the regular site. See how the transition happens, whether it is smooth. At the same time, you are not disrupting normal operations. Full interruption. Move processing from regular to alternate sites. So, a lot of banks have this full interruption test. They identify a particular day in a year or in once in half year. They shut down the server. They bring up the disaster recovery side. They test what happens, how much time it takes to recover, what services are restored during that time, whether it is a partial failure or a full failure. So many things are tested in the full interruption test. But what are the objectives of testing? The main objective is existing plans will result in successful recovery of infrastructure and business process. So the objective of testing will help you determine whether the recovery is successful of the infrastructure and business processes. It can also identify gaps or errors. So if there are errors in the process, or if there are gaps in the recovery times or in the process itself, you will come to know. Then you verify assumptions. So the person, after detailed discussion, assumption is made and the plan is written in such a way, so you will come to know if the assumptions have been right or wrong. Then test timelines. Now you have mentioned a RPO of 4 minutes, RPO of another 2 hours, for example. So you actually get to test the timelines, whether it falls within that range. Then you also get to train and coordinate staff. So during testing procedures, your test starts in a simple way and becomes more challenging with progress. It's always better to include an independent third party to observe the test. It could be an auditor, your information security auditor, and retain the documents for documentation review, for audit reviews. Now, the testing procedure is first you develop the test objective, you execute the test, you evaluate the results of the test, you develop recommendations to improve the test effectiveness, and then you follow up to ensure that the recommendations are implemented. What are the stages of the test? There is a pre-test, a test, and the post-test. So pre-test is set the stage. In that, you set up the equipment, you prepare the staff for the test. Then the test phase is the actual test that you perform, and the post-test is you clean up, return resources, calculate metrics, time required, then successful percentage rate in processing, ratio of successful transactions in alternate mode versus normal mode. Then you delete the test plan or test data, evaluate the plan again, implement improvements to the plan. If there are variations, you will have a gap analysis also done. So you compare the current level with the desired level. Which process needs to be improved? Where is the staff or equipment lacking? What or where does additional coordination need to occur? Now all this will help you to determine the improvements in the test process itself. Insurance is transfer of risk to an insurance company. Now IPF is information processing facility and equipment. Then there is data and media, then employee damage. There may be insurance for data and media in other countries. I'm not so sure whether it has been implemented in India itself, because you need to arrive at the value of data before you can quantify that this is my value of the data. So if you look at this IPF and equipment, business interruption, loss of profit due to information systems interruption. Extra expense, extra cost of operations following information processing facility damage. IS equipment and facilities, loss of information processing facility and equipment due to damage. Then, under data and media, valuable paper and records are lost. It covers the cash value of lost or damaged paper and records. But you need to actually assign a value and the insurance company has to accept the value. Then the media reconstruction, cost of reproduction of media. Then loss of data during media transport. There will be an insurance for that. Fidelity coverage, that is caused by employee damage, that is loss from dishonest employees. Errors or omissions, liability for error resulting in loss to a client. So there have been several incidents of errors and omissions. A few years back, too sure, HSBC had an incident. There have been similar incidents being reported in the newspapers of late. Just like any other audit, you need to audit BCP also. What is included in the BCP audit? Now, some of the broad categories are given here. A comprehensive checklist can be made after determining what exactly the organization is doing with disaster recovery and business continuity plan, what kind of documentation they have. It can be interview, observation, review of documentation, observing a mock drill that happens, and then pointing out the comment, or pointing out the mistakes or areas of improvement. Now, auditing BCP includes, is the business impact analysis complete with the recovery point objective and recovery time objective defined for all services? Or is it just for one or two services? So, for all services which are critical or non-critical, there should be a BIA. It should be complete. Is the BCP in line with business goals? Is it effective and is it current? So, the BCP should be made in line with the business goals. It should not be a simple cut and paste from some other organization where you may not even have the same kind of infrastructure present. Then, is it clear who does what in a BCP and DRP? So, roles and responsibilities of people during a BCP or during an incident. Whether it is clear, so you can interview them, you can actually review the document. Whether the document is updated, the document may have Mr. X, but then when you actually interview, it will be Mr. Y who has come in place of Mr. X. So, you need to be clear who does what in a BCP DRP. Then, is everyone trained, competent and happy with their jobs, which is very important. Otherwise, in the event of an incident, Mera kya ho? I am going. So, that could be the attitude. Is the DRP detailed? Is it maintained? Is it tested on a regular basis? That should be audited. Is the BCP and DRP consistent in their recovery coverage? Now, BCP is a bigger document, larger document. DRP is a portion of that. Both have to be consistent and complementary to each other. Are people listed in the BCP or phone tree current? And do they have a copy of the business continuity manual? So, you have specified roles and responsibility for different people in the organization. Like I said a couple of minutes ago, Mr. X was there, now it is Mr. Y. So, does Mr. Y have the copy of the BC manual? And does he or she knows what to do? Are the backup and recovery procedures being followed? So, that has to be audited. Whether a grandfather-father-son strategy is adopted, or what is the frequency of backups, how it is being done, who tests it. So, all this have to be checked. Does the hot site have current copies of all software? So, here it should be software and documentation. So, whether the hot site has the correct copies of all software and the documentation. Is the backup site maintained to expectations, and are the expectations effective? Now, it should not be a dump. So, the backup facilities also should have similar infrastructure as in the main processing facility. And are the expectations effective? That means, can they really recover in case a disaster occurs? Was the DRP test documented? Was the DRP test documented well, and was the DRP updated? Again, the DRP was made 2 years back. Since then, the organization has replaced their servers. They have replaced or upgraded their software. Whether that reflects in the updated DRP document. All these things have to be done during the audit of BCP. These are generic things, so you need to go in detail, formulate your own checklist, or try to understand the business processes and what the IT is doing, and then conduct the audit of the BCP process itself in the organization. We have looked at RAID, We have looked at backups, which is incremental backup and differential backup. We have looked at networks, diverse routing and alternate routing. Then alternative site for processing like the hot site, warm site, cold site, reciprocal agreement, mobile site. Testing of BCP, DRP using a checklist, structured walkthrough, simulation, and parallel full interruption test. Finally, the insurance aspect.